Yo, what is up guys? So today is our in-depth review of these spells. First, I'm going to show you exactly all the spells that we're going to be dealing with today. We are going to be looking at range and width. We're going to go over War versus Mage. We're going to go over Gilded Skies versus Yokai Peak. And the obvious EIF, EIR timer issues with these spells. And how these spells perform in a raid. So let's get right into it. Let's go. There is a little bit of a problem today as we're testing spells because our beloved Selman, it does not work with the Yokai Peak spells. I do have a trick though that will show you exactly how to test your spells for the range and the width. But first, let me give an introduction to the Yokai Peak spells. So the first one that we have is Chainstorm, which is an insane spell. Then we have Void Dragon, which is strictly a boss spell, a Rift Beam, which is also strictly a boss spell. We have the Hands of Death, which is not even usable, as you can see. And then we have Spinning Blade Smash for War, which is all right. We have Kunai Knives, which is strictly a boss spell for War. We have Yokai Transformation, which is also unusable. And finally, the heal spell Spirit Link, which we will go over a little bit as well. I do think that it's rather interesting that they have kept Transformation and Hands of Death spells actually in the game when they are completely useless, while they have switched the War spells from Insane and transferred them to Nightmare, and that they've kept Chain as an Insane spell, even though that's what we use in Nightmare. Why didn't they put that up into Nightmare? It's beyond me. I don't understand some of these decisions that they have made. But in any case, we are going to get into a place where you guys can actually test the spells. We want to look at the range and the width of the spells. First, let's dive right into Aquatic Temple. This is the best place to test your spells out. You want to go insane so you're dealing with less damage taken as you're testing your spells. We're only going to be testing out the main spells that we use. We're going to be testing all of them. I just really wanted to show you an area where you can actually do that and test them out. So, but this is Jade Rain versus the Chainstorm, which is what mages use currently. And Jade Rain has a lot more length to it. Chainstorm, you have to be a little bit closer to the mobs. I don't see it really affecting it too much in the dungeon as far as that, because you're constantly moving. But you can see that Jade Rain does have a little bit of an advantage because you can hit more mobs on a wider scale than you can with Chainstorm. The mobs have to be grouped a little bit closer together for Chain to actually chain to the second groups, which it doesn't seem to be too much of a problem in Yokai Peak. It seems to travel pretty well, but there is a width problem, and I will get more into that later when I show you the difference side by side. Okay, so next up, we're going to be looking at the War spells and showing you how there is a big difference between them. So you definitely have a lot longer of a length that you can get on the Blade Barrage. Now, Spinning Blade really doesn't come into play until you're super close to the mobs, and you'll see here in a minute what it is that I'm talking about. Like, I still can't hit the mobs yet with it. Blade Barrage is pretty consistent no matter where you're at. But as soon as we move a little bit closer, then you start to see where Spinning Blade has more width, but you really got to be close up into these mobs. Okay, we're going to teleport into Nightmare on Yokai Peaks to test the mage spells out, because you need HP to see the difference between the two. Chain is damage over time, whereas Jade is a one-shot. So the problem here is that the mage attack, those stuns will still keep going if you use the chain spell. It doesn't quite get all of the hits off to get to completely clear out those mages. So if you're running in a raid, it would really make sense to use Jade, because then you can eliminate the mages altogether and your team is not going to get stuck in those stun attacks. Okay, so now we're going to TP into Yokai Peak Insane to test out the War spells. Both spells are one shot, but as you recall, Spinning Blade, you have to be right on top of those mobs to get the full benefit of having width of that spell. So it's going to take a little bit longer. And when you are in a raid, you are not going to get that opportunity because everyone else who is using Blade Barrage or Jade Rain, they're going to get those mobs before you can even get to them. So you are going to miss out on damage done in the end if you use that spell. I do want to just show you guys the heal spell. I know that we do not use it, but I'm going to show it to you anyway because I find that it is kind of interesting. And I'm just going to point out that the reason why we do not use this spell, even though it has an incredible uptime, is one, it has 0 range. As you can see on my little handy dandy alt, it is like we're so close yet so far away. Oh God. But it does have an amazing uptime. But the other downside of this spell is that it has no speed to it. So it's really, really bad for raids. So I just wanted to show you all this amazing heal spell. Okay, so now we're going to teleport in and check out the bosses. So first off, I'm going to show you Chain on it. Don't recommend this one. It is damage over time. It is short range, so you're going to be behind the raid group if you use it. And it's not going to actually get all of its ticks in before this boss goes into invulnerability. So this one has big thumbs down for me. Now, the next one we're going to test out is Rift Beam, which is my favorite because it deals a lot of damage. You can almost get this boss completely 2-cycled in with Rift Beam. So it deals just a tremendous amount more damage than any of the other spells out there. So in fact, if I lowered my HP a little bit and put more into my spells, I'd probably finish that boss off right away. Now, Dragon, on the other hand, is really good. It's not bad. It's a little bit more than Chain, plus it's got the more length to it, so you can stand at the door and you're gonna be right with the group. I am going to point out a really big problem with this spell, and that is you do not want to hit too early on this boss because you will miss. And I'm going to show you right now. This is when we typically will throw off this spell. Well, guess what, guys? It does not actually make its hit, so don't do it anymore. Also, I want to point out that this spell is super, super slow. So on a boss that is moving a lot, you have really got to time that thing where you know that they are not going to be moving. My final recommendation is use Rift Beam. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys is the timer on the spells, that they don't quite line up with enhanced. I'm sure you guys have noticed that. It's a big problem, especially when your cooldowns are supposed to be the same time. They just didn't delay it like they did here, as you can see with Jade Rain. They had a little bit of a delay, and so it times out just right to where you need to use it next. Now, as you can see here with Chain is going to finish super, super early than your enhanced. So you've really got to be careful when you're in raid about when to pop your enhanced versus your Chain, so that way you can at least line it up. The only spell that Yokai Peak actually lines up somewhat with is Rift Beam, because Rift Beam is an 8-second cooldown, but because it's going to be quicker than the enhanced cooldown, it's actually going to line up a little bit better. So instead of 2 seconds left over before you can pop your enhanced again, it's only going to be 1 second left at the deadline. So that is actually not too bad. So my final thoughts are, how do these spells perform in a raid? And I'm going to say that you should be sticking to the Gilded Skies Blade Barrage and Jade Rain to use for your mobs. It's just going to go a lot quicker and smoother, especially for war. Spinning Blade is just not going to be the option for you, especially if you want to keep up with the raid and not miss as much as you would, because you are going to miss mobs a ton if you use the Spinning Blade. So that is definitely a must. And damage done in raids, you want to be able to keep up so you don't get skipped. That's what I'm saying. Especially if you're a player that sits lags behind the group, you really need to be in front of the group if you're going to be using any of the Yokai Peak spells. For Mage, on the other hand, it really does not seem to make that much of a difference if you use Jade or Chain. But I do still prefer Jade for the reasons I stated in the comparison videos. Jade reaches farther, it is a one-shot, very clean, very effective, and it has a wider range. So you can use Chain on the last group of mobs in this dungeon, the third set. So that one I have found is works okay. So anyway, that is my final thoughts on this, and I am going to throw up here on the screen real quick where you can see the final damage done. And you can see there's really not that much of a difference between all of the spells. But I would still say that Blade Barrage and Jade Rain went out. Even though you have less damage on them, it's not going to make that much of a difference in the end. As you can see, I did more damage with those than I did with Yokai Peak. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has actually made it this far in the video. Please give me a big thumbs up. We are definitely want Voldex to see this so that hopefully they can help fine tune for the next dungeon and make the spells a little bit on the better side for us, because hell will break loose if we have to use Gilded Skies spells in the next one. All right, with that, guys, peace out, and I'll see you in the next vid.